स्थापितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। श्री चैतन्य मनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगण रघुनाथान्वितां तां सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
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 नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवति उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। कृष्णे स्वधामोपगते धर्मज्ञानादिभिः सह कलौ नष्टदृशामीशा पुराणार्को धुनोदितः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। So let's pull up the today's verse. So can you see the screen?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes. So today's verse is from the third canto, fifth chapter, and the fifth chapter is about Vidura's talks with Maitreya. So far in that chapter, we have discussed till like last time. I think it was on 3.5.50, which was discussed. Like in this chapter, as we were discussing before, it started with Vidura's questions to Maitreya Rishi. How, like a person who has perfected devotional service, acts or performs his devotional activity, and then he asks about the 10 different aspects of Srimad Bhagavatam or subject matters of Srimad Bhagavatam. From 10 to 16, Vidura's exclusive interest in Krishna Katha is discussed, and in those we discussed two of the important verses. That is the result of hearing that Krishna Katha increases indifference to all other activities, and The other verse was, "O friend of the distress, Harikatha alone can do good for all. Like bees collect honey from flowers, kindly choose and describe the essence of all topics." So that's Vidura is requesting Maitreya Muni. And then Maitreya Rishi honored Vidura and expressed all the gratitude. So when the question comes, and it's very, very beautiful question and very nice question. So then Maitreya Rishi greatly honored Vidura, spoke for the welfare of all. And it says that by your glorious inquiries, I'm going to discuss all the things that you have asked me. It is not astonishing because being born from Vyasadeva, you have accepted the Lord without deviations. As you and we know that Vidura was born from Vyasadeva because Vyasadeva came after the death of, if you remember, Amba and Ambika and are two queens of Vichitravirya and his brother, of Vichitravirya, sorry. So the Vichitravirya is the son of Satyavati. Satyavati, again, you know, is the wife of Shantanu, Maharaj Shantanu. And if you remember the story about Shantanu and Ganga and Gangaputra Bhishma, and how Devavrata, who was previously Devavrata, became Bhishma so that Shantanu could marry Satyavati. And after that marriage happened, then they got a son, Vichitravirya. And when they look for the brides, then there is Ambika, Ambalika. There are three princesses who were brought by Bhishma so that they get married to Vichitravirya. And to make the long story short, like Vichitravirya went to a fight and he lost his life, lost his life by being killed by Yaksha. So after he was killed, so there was nobody to give heir to the family because because they did not have children by that time. Then on those times there was practices like, for example, if in Vyasadeva is also son of Satyavati, but with Parashar Muni and Satyavati, when they came together, then Vyasadeva was born. So in that sense, Vyasadeva was son of Satyavati. So Satyavati then requested Vyasadeva to come and by his yogic powers interact with these queens. So as you may remember the story from Mahabharata, how the Dhritarashtra, Pandu, and the third, who is the Dasi, then interacted, because what happened, Ambalika was so fearful that he sent the Dasi to come before Vasudeva, and that's how the birth of Vidura happened. And that's how he says you are the son of Vyasadeva. And also there is another storyline which goes that Vidura is the incarnation of Yamaraj, who got a curse because of the misjudgment. In one of the cases, a Brahmana gave a curse, but that curse came out to be benediction because he always was busy with his work. He wanted to be he wanted to come and get himself immersed in Harikatha. So this life gave him that opportunity. So now going back again to the storyline, then from 22 to 38, Maitreya Rishi explained the process of creation. That is the first process, which is Sarga. And he explained that initially only Bhagavan existed, and then how the other creation, the secondary creator Brahma came to being. But before Brahma came, the three different forms of Vishnu, like which the first one is the Karanodakshaya Vishnu, then Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, then Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. That explanation was given in brief. So from 23 to 37, so there is a process of creation being discussed. And 38th verse says that the controlling deity of all the elements. So all the different elements, that is the 27 elements actually, that is being discussed there. So for example, that included ear, eyes, skin, nose, tongue, hands, feet, voice, anus, genitals. So all them have their residing uh, deities. Like for example, for ear, it's Dig Devatas. For eyes, it's Surya. For skin, it's Vayu. So different demigods control different parts of the body, which function because of their prowess. So that is described. And from the verse number 39 to 51, those demigods who are controlling different elements or different like elements means this is Sankhya philosophy. It is composed of the Mahat Tattva, which is the compendium of all the elements. That is called Mahat Tattva. It is composed of you can say 24 different elements. There are like 5 sensory Gyanendriyas, which is called Gyanendriyas. There is Karmendriyas, which is related to the working senses. So Gyanendriyas are what? Eyes, nose, skin, ear, tongue, and yeah. So those are the five ones. And then the anus and genitals will come in others, and then the mind and the karmendriyas, their function. What is their function? Eye is to see, nose is to smell, and tongue is to taste. So those are their functions. That is also included. So all together it's 16, and there are 8 other subtle elements, which makes it to 24. So that is the Mahat Tattva. And taking those Mahat Tattva, Lord Brahma creates the secondary creation. So that is what is there. So they starts praying to all the presiding deities. They starts praying to the Karanodakshaya Vishnu. And from 39 to 43 are their glorious prayers. So 39 is umbrella of miseries. That say your lotus feet are like an umbrella for the surrendered souls. So who are going through misery. So that if they are going through misery, because of your umbrella, they could not feel the misery, the heat of the misery. And then comes the 40th shloka, which talks about full of knowledge. That full of knowledge, and when he's talk about full of knowledge, says tapatraya, all the 3 kinds of miseries, that is adhibhautik, adhidaivik, and adhyatmik. They are being taken care by the one who surrenders to the Supreme Lord. What is adhibhautik? Adhibhautik is something, is the miseries caused by the external surroundings. And adhidaivik is something called some miseries that is coming because of the demigods. And adhidaivik, adhibhautik, and adhyatmik. Adhyatmik is something what miseries that we face because of the changes in the body, like the diseases and all different kinds of distresses that happen to the body. So all these things can be taken care by the Supreme Lord. It says, overwhelmed by tapatraya, or these 3 kinds of miseries, the jivas can never have any happiness. Therefore, we all take shelter on the shade of your lotus feet, which are full of knowledge. And then this verse comes, which is 3:5:41, where it tells about how it vanquishes all the sinful reactions, and it also mentions about the lotus feet and the lotus face of the earth, of Supreme Lord, not earth. So let's recite this word. Marganti yatte mukhapadmanidai.
Marganti yatte mukhapadmanidai.
Chandah suparnair vishayo vivikte.
Chandah suparnair vishayo vivikte.
Yashyadhama shodha saridvarayah.
Yasyaghamarshodha saridvarayah.
Padam padam tirtha padah prapannaha.
Padam padam tirtha padah prapannaha.
Let's do it again. Marganti yatte mukha padmanidaihi.
Marganti yate mukha padmanidai.
Chandah suparnai rishayo vivikte.
Chandah suparne risayo vivikte.
Yashyagama shodda saridvaraya.
Aisya gamasada saridvaraya.
Yasyagha, okay. Padam padam tirtha padah prapannaha.
Padam padam tirtha padah prapannaha.
One more time. Marganti yatte mukha padmanidais.
Marganti yate mukha padmanidais.
Chandah suparnair rishayo vivikte.
Chandaha suparne risayo vivikte.
Yaghamar shoda saridvaraya.
Yasya ghamasoda saridvaraya.
Padam padam tirtha padah prapanna.
Padam padam tirtha pada prapannaha.
Please recite.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Margantiyate mukhapadmanidai.
Margantiyate
Mukhapadmanidai. Chanda suparnai vishayo vivikte.
Chanda suparne risayo vivikte.
Yasyaga marshoda saritvaraya.
Yasyaghamarsada saridvaraya.
Padam padam tirtha pada prapannaha.
Padam padam tirtha pada prapannaha.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Please, for the second recitation.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Please.
Margantiyate mukhapadmanidais.
Margantiyate mukhapadmanidais.
Chandas rasayo vivikte.
Chanda suparne risayo vivikte.
Yasya gamasoda saridvarayaha.
Yasya gamarsauda saridvaraya.
Padam padam tirtha padah prapannaha.
Padam padam tirtha pada prapannaha.
Thank you,
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
One more recitation.
Marganti.
Yeah, please go ahead, Prabhu.
Go ahead, please. Go ahead, Mataji.
Margantiyate mukhapadma nidais.
Margantiyate mukhapadmanidais.
Chanda suparner rasayo vivikte.
Chandah
Suparne
suparne rishayo
risayo
vivikte.
vivikte.
Yasyaga marshoda saridvarayaha.
Yasyaghamasoda saridvaraya.
Padam padam tirtha padaha prapannaha.
Padam
Padam padam tirtha
padah
pada
prapanna.
prapannaha.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So here we see in this verse, the presiding deities or the demigods are praying to the Supreme Lord. So what they are saying, Marganti yatte mukhapadma nidais. Marganti means searching here, it says searching after. So Marganti yatte mukhapadma. Mukhapadma is the lotus face. Nidai is now, there is a lot of poetry being used. Nida is to those who have taken, Nida means to get shelter of something. And also it is called as a, what do you say, the nest also. So in the nest, it is being one takes shelter. It is more specifically for the birds, and you would see why it is birds here described. So it says Mukhapadma Nidai. Nidai he means by those, here it says by those who have taken shelter of such a lotus flower. So Nidai is also means a nest. So taking shelter of the nest. Then Chandaha. Chandaha is the Vedic Chandaha Suparne. Vedic hymns, and Suparne means wings. Wings, by the wings of the Vedic hymns. So you can see here now, Rishayaha, the sages, what they do, Vivikte, in clear mind, Vivikte is very clear mind, and Yasya Aghama Shorda, Agha Marsha Uda, which that which offers freedom from all reactions to sin. Agha, Agha is sinful activities. Marsha Uda, getting the freedom from those sinful activities. Sarit, Sarit is again another name of rivers. Varayaha, in the best of the rivers, you can see here. Padam Padam, in every step. Tirtha Padaha. Tirtha Pada is another name of Supreme Lord, because one whose lotus feet are as good as place of pilgrimage. So it is another name of Supreme Lord, and also sometimes the devotees of the Lord are mentioned as Tirtha Pada. Prapannaha, taking shelter. So here it says that the lotus feet of the Lord are themselves a shelter of all places of pilgrimage, as you can see here. And the great clear-minded sages carried by the wings of Vedas. Now see why wings have come. Now great clear-minded sages carried by the wings of the Vedas, right? So then they are referred to as birds actually, because they are carried by the wings of the Vedas. Always search after the nest of your lotus-like face. Now try to imagine that this the clear-minded great sages, what they do, they carry, because by the knowledge of the Vedas, they try to reach where? To the supreme ashraya or shelter, which is what? Which is the nest is like lotus face of the Lord, lotus feet of the Lord. Both of the things are being described here. Some of them surrender to your lotus feet at every step by taking shelter of best of the rivers, the Ganga, which can deliver one from all sinful reactions. So take shelter at, why it is described here in Ganga? Because it is a celestial river and it comes from the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. And in the Vamana avatar, that's how the appearance of Ganga was there, from the spiritual world to the material world. He made with his leg, he made a kind of finger, made a pore where Ganga entered to the spiritual world. And from spiritual world, there is another description of how Bhagirath Muni brought it into earth. So that is another time discussion. We'll discuss that time. But it is saying your lotus feet at every step by taking shelter of the best of the rivers. So because Ganga is coming from the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, so Ganga is non-different than Lord's lotus feet. If somebody goes to Ganga and takes shelter of Ganga, it means taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. So he's how beautifully it is poetically being told. So let's read the purport and we can discuss further.
The Paramahamsas are compared to royal swans who make their nests on the petals of the lotus flower. The Lord's transcendental bodily parts are always compared to the lotus flower because in the material world, the lotus flower is the last word in beauty. The most beautiful thing in the world is the Vedas or Bhagavad Gita because therein knowledge is imparted by the personality of Godhead himself. The Paramahamsa makes his nest in the lotus-like face of the Lord and always seeks shelter at his lotus feet, which are reached by the wings of Vedic wisdom. Since the Lord is the original source of all emanations, intelligent persons, enlightened by Vedic knowledge, seek the shelter of the Lord, just as birds who have the nest again search out of the nest to take complete rest. All Vedic knowledge is meant for understanding the Supreme Lord, as stated by the Lord in Bhagavad Gita 15:15. Vedaiste sarvai ahameva vedya. Intelligent persons who are like swans take shelter of the Lord by all means and do not hover on the mental plane by fruitlessly speculating on different philosophies. Shall I continue? Prabhu?
Yeah, just one more paragraph. Please continue.
The Lord is so kind that He has spread the river Ganges throughout the universe, so that by taking bath in that holy river, everyone can get released from the reactions of sins which occur at every step. There are many rivers in the world which are able to evoke one's sense of God consciousness simply by one's bathing in them, and the river Ganges is chief amongst them. In India, there are 5 sacred rivers, but the Ganges is the most sacred. The river Ganges and Bhagavad Gita are chief sources of transcendental happiness for mankind, and intelligent persons can take shelter of them to go back home, back to Godhead. Even Sripada Shankaracharya recommends that a little knowledge in Bhagavad Gita and the drinking of little quantity of Ganges water can save one from the punishment of Yamaraja. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mataji. So beautifully it describes now, and Srila Prabhupada, as his beautiful purports, he says, he describes so nicely that Paramahamsas are compared to the royal swans. So Paramahamsa. So they are like Hansas. Hansas are white in color, and Paramahansa means royal swans. You have seen Hansas, but Paramahansas. Why? Because they are called that way. There is another reason which is given in the Shastras. It's because the nature of the swans is if they can drink milk, they can take water and leave the rest aside. They can differentiate between the milk and the water and only take the milk and leave the water aside. That is the nature of that. So that's why what it means is they see the world and take the essence of that. And what is the essence? Is the knowledge of the Supreme Lord and always thinking about the Supreme Lord. They take the essence very nicely. So that's why they are called as Paramahamsas. So now Srila Prabhupada says, like as poetically this verse comes out, these make their nest on the petals of the lotus flower. And lotus flower is very beautiful in if you see, like it is described so many places in the Shastras because of the beautiful lotus flower. And can imagine every part of the body of the Lord is compared to a lotus. Mostly we see lotus-like face, lotus-like eyes, lotus-like lips, lotus-like feet, lotus-like hands. So that is how always compared to the lotus flower, as Prabhupada says, is last word in beauty. The most beautiful thing in the world is the Vedas. Now, Prabhupada goes further, saying Vedas are the most beautiful things because they have all the knowledge that has to be imparted. And then Bhagavad Gita, because Bhagavad Gita is nothing but essence of Vedas. And what Krishna says in Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita in 15.15, Vedaischa sarvai ahameva vedyo. All the Vedas, the essence of all the Vedas or the goal of all the Vedas is to know me. If one knows me, he knows all the Vedas. He knows the essence of all the knowledge. That's what here it's described here. And intelligent persons who are like swans take shelter of Lord by all means and do not hover on the mental plane, because they see that our mental activity or mental thinking would never take us anywhere. If it would have taken us, then we would be realized soul, but we are not so. That's why they don't hover on the mental plane. They directly take shelter of the Supreme Lord by associating with the pure devotees of the Lord, because they are authorities in that subject matter. And in the second paragraph, it talks about the Lord is so kind that it has spread about river Ganga and 5.
Which elective you are talking about? Which one you want to take?
five different rivers which are there. And what are those? Can anybody name them? Like, I think it's in a mantra. It's there. Gangeshcha Jamuneshchaiva Godavari Saraswati Narmade Sindhu Kaveri Jalasmin. So I think 6 rivers were described there. So one of the river is no more now in existence. So Gangeshcha Jamuneshchaiva Godavari Saraswati. So what are the 5 rivers? Padmapriya Mataji, you wanted to tell, right?
Yeah, same Prabhu. That is there in mantra, right? So
Okay. So that is there. So one of the chief of them is Ganga river. So the river Ganga, as Bhagavad Gita, are the chief sources of transcendental happiness for mankind. So that's why those two are defined there. And intelligent persons can take shelter of them to go back home, back to Godhead. And this one, last one, is that Guru Ashtakam by Sripad Shankaracharya. Or no, not Guru Ashtakam, Bhajagovindam. In the Bhajagovindam, there is a thing, I don't remember that line, but it tells about a little knowledge of Bhagavad Gita or drinking a little quantity of Ganga can save one from the Yamaraj pangs. Means Yamaraj will not come and take. And it is said that wherever Bhagavatam is discussed, Yamaraj comes to listen. So there is very little chance of like he being involved in taking Vaishnavas. And even in the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we will see that he tells his followers after that discussion of Ajamila that please don't go wherever the Harinam is going on. Please don't go and take there. That is not our jurisdiction. Our jurisdiction is when people are not chanting about the Lord, we would take them and do the calculation. But where Lord's name is being taken and where that devotees are there or Vaishnavas are there, you don't need to go. That is not our jurisdiction. Though Vishnu Dutas will come and they would take care of all the things. So what is the message from this verse and what is in it for us is that one should follow at the footsteps of those Paramahansas who always focus on the lotus feet of the Lord or all on the instructions of the Lord and make our life successful by following in those footsteps, because the ultimate goal is going back to Godhead. And we can only do that by the mercy of those Paramahansas who have so much attachment to the Supreme Lord, his lotus feet, his lotus face, and every sinful activity is taken care of. And because they are worshipping the Supreme Lord and his lotus feet, which is non-different than Goddess Ganga itself, it purifies of all the sins, or river Ganga. So that is the message here. Any points of discussion, any realization, any correction? Now is the time to discuss.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare
My
Krishna.
pranams to you and to all the devotees here. That was nectar, Prabhu, especially the last words about Paramahamsas. That was beautiful. They are so much attached to the lotus feet of the Lord and the lotus face of the Lord. I was thinking, Prabhu, the whole... Sorry, okay. So, Paramahamsas, yeah. So, these Paramahamsas, the nest, the wings, these Paramahamsas with the wings, with the Vedas are the wings, they go to the tree. Here the tree is the face of the Supreme Lord, and from the face of the Supreme Lord came Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So these Paramahamsas, they take shelter of the words of Srimad Bhagavad Gita that came from the lotus mouth of the lotus face of the Lord, which is the tree here. And in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, It ends with Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. So, like that, Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. That's how the nest, the lotus mouth of the Lord, is directing to his lotus feet to take Sharanam there, to take the shelter of the service of the lotus feet of the Lord, Tirtha Pada. And from that lotus feet has come Ganga. That's why Ganga is so sacred too, because it's touched by the lotus feet of Lord Hari. So all the people, they get rid of the sins in the waters of Ganga, but the Tirthapada, the Tirthas are made, the places are made Tirthas because of the Paramhamsas, the pure devotees residing there. So in this case, the Tirthapada, roots of the Lord, which are the lotus feet of the Lord, they are already present in the Tirthapadas, who are Paramahamsas. Like Sri Narottama says, Govinda resides in your heart. The lotus feet of the Lord are in the heart of the Tirthapadas. And that's why the Ganges is even more powerful. One is by the touch of the lotus feet of the Lord, and by the presence of the Tirthapada, the Paramahamsas of the Lord. So in this way, from the top, that's Paramahamsas going to the nest of the Lord residing in the mouth. That's where Bhagavad Gita came from. And then, so in that way, taking the shelter of the lotus mouth of the Lord, those are instructions of the Lord, and which are directing to the service of the lotus feet of Lord Hari, which are Tirthapadas. So, yeah, Prabhu, that was just going on as we were discussing about the whole thing. But very wonderfully said. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Mataji. That is a wonderful parallel analogy, like from how lotus mouth, it comes to lotus feet by Bhagavad Gita discussion starting from. That's a wonderful analogy and wonderful description. Thank you so much for enlightening us. Any other reflections?
Prabhuji,
Mhm.
the first sentence, like that lotus feet of the Lord are the places of pilgrimage, right?
Mhm.
So can we say that wherever the pure devotees are,
Mhm.
those places are also like pilgrimages, right, Prabhu?
Yeah, that is very true. And I think in the first canto, there is a verse, Tirthi Kurvanti Tirthani.
Yeah.
That verse actually defines that. It is about Vidura, it was been told by Yudhishthir Maharaj. Wherever they go, that place becomes Tirtha.
Yeah.
Because they carry Supreme Lord with them. And Supreme Lords always reside in their hearts. So wherever they go, that place is Tirtha. Yeah, that is very true, Mataji. Just to say.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you for explaining.
Any other reflections?